For those that are against VIC MIGNOGNA, continue to scrutinize not only VIC MIGNOGNA as a person, but also the conventions that are seemingly enough reinstating VIC MIGNOGNA at their cons for guest appearances, for events, and here today we're going to be taking a look at some of the individuals that are not only crying wolf, but also having to go against company policies, convention policies, and further demonizing VIC MIGNOGNA as a person, but also scrutinizing conventions and doing what they feel is right. As once more before we begin, if you guys are new to this channel and of course love anime and Dragon Ball alongside want to be up to date with all the latest involving VIC MIGNOGNA, Monica Rial, Jamie Marchi, Ron Toy, and the entire situation, then be sure to go on ahead and punch that subscribe button and turn on all notifications to never miss a single upload and to be up to date with all latest news and information, along with checking out and subscribing to my primary channel Unreal and Gaming, where on there we are going to be covering lots of Dragon Ball content, anime, and gaming, so make sure you guys go on ahead and check that channel out over there, alongside following me on Twitter at Unreal and Gaming for all the latest updates, including if you guys have any articles and or pictures to tag me in or share with me, be sure to go on ahead and follow me on Twitter. Now, one of the major tweets that I want to go on ahead and present here today was put out by an individual that goes by the name of Creepout, as they went on to post, and I quote, "I stand with Vic is just make America great again for weeaboos." Of course, a very popular tweet being put out, 10,000 likes, 3,000 retweets. Now, I want to go on ahead and address this and asking the question, what does this tweet entail in terms of specifics? Are you trying to make the insinuation that those that do stand with VIC MIGNOGNA in the idea that there is no empirical evidence having to back up the claims made against him, in the fact that those who do support him just so happen to be Donald Trump supporters, in the fact that Donald Trump, at least in America, is very controversial, a very controversial figure in terms of his presidency, his stances, his policy. Now, for this individual to put that out there and having to make a very bold claim that anyone out there that does stand with VIC MIGNOGNA are just those that represent make America great again, of course having to even go as far as to quote for weeaboos, which I strongly disagree, because there are a lot of VIC MIGNOGNA supporters that absolutely hate Donald Trump's guts. So by this individual having to go as far as to insult individualistic political views, making a very bold statement and having to make the insinuation that all of us that just so happen to support VIC MIGNOGNA are also those that support Donald Trump, that couldn't be further from the truth, and this is a very ignorant statement to make, especially considering the fact that this single tweet, this repugnant, egregious tweet, got over 10,000 likes with 3,000 retweets. I strongly disagree with this, and the fact that this person is trying to make everyone out to be not only a weeaboo, but making such a fallacious statement and having to insinuate that we also support Donald Trump, that in and of itself should not be tolerated. And again, I'm starting to question as to where this exactly comes from, because if you just so happen to support VIC MIGNOGNA, you're automatically going to support Donald Trump in that stance, just because the stance to you represents those that quote support make America great again. Absolutely fallacious. But it doesn't end there, because Therese27, our beloved Therese in the Dragon Ball fandom, went as far as to retweet Kamehacon's post on having to have a harassment policy, as she went on to state, and I quote, "Having a harassment policy is good. Having a known con creep on your guest list just shows everyone that your policy is toothless and that reports will only be taken serious if it is convenient for the convention." Which that in and of itself is not only fallacious but wrong. So even if the convention itself does endorse in having a harassment policy, that still isn't good enough for Therese. I don't understand where this comes from. She blocked me, she blocked many other individuals within the Dragon Ball community, such as Rhymestyle, Nanogenics, and many others that put her authority into question or even challenging her intellectual stance, which I think is pretty petty on her end, considering the fact that she's quick to block you instead of having to retort in an intellectual way, but I digress. So again, she's going off of this notion and having to insinuate that he is a creep. Why? Because he hugs people? Because he's quote a little too friendly with fans? I'm sorry, if you want to go on ahead and classify hugs and being too friendly as an act of sexual misconduct, then I guess the next time you hug somebody, you better prepare for the consequences, as someone might accuse you of said sexual allegations and having to feel uncomfortable just because you gave them a stupid hug. But again, her stance on this is not only flawed, but my question to Therese is, why do you believe that the policy is toothless simply because you think it's more or less convenient for the convention if something were to be taken serious for them to have a reaction. It doesn't make any sense. So even if the convention itself does beef up security, even if the convention itself does take precautionary measures in securing its fans and voice actors and keeping them safe, you still will screech on Twitter in having to state that it's toothless. So what do you propose we do? Aside from eradicating VIC MIGNOGNA entirely from the face of the earth, what is it that you propose we do then? That's my question to Therese. What do you propose in terms of Kamehacon doing other than getting rid of VIC MIGNOGNA in order to keep the quote fans and voice actors safe of such a violent and disgusting predator as you label him to be? But again, your stance is flawed. There's no empirical evidence to support the narrative that he is guilty, and when he is found innocent through the court of law, then what are you possibly going to say afterwards? That he's still guilty even after they found him innocent? Again, Therese, my question is, what would you propose other than removing him from the convention? Being that people are paying money to see him, is that wrong? Is that objectively wrong for people to do? Very weird, but nonetheless, I digress. As we also had a few voice actors actually pull from the convention as well, Damian Mills and Jason Douglas. As Damian Mills went on to state, and I quote, "I'm profoundly sorry and regret to say that I have withdrawn my upcoming appearance at Kamehacon. This has come after a great deal of thought and ultimately comes down to following what I feel is right. Please understand we're working all the way to make this up to the fans." As Jason Douglas went on to post, "I have withdrawn my previously announced Friday appearance at Kamehacon in April. My regards to the fans and friends who had planned to meet me there." Now, I've met Jason Douglas before, and he's a really cool dude. I've never met Damian Mills, but nonetheless, it's very unfortunate to see these actors pull away considering their importance in Dragon Ball Super as characters, and being that right now they do stand with Monica Rial and they do stand for what they feel is right, which is okay and acceptable. However, there's no empirical evidence. There's no irrefutable factual evidence to support the narrative that Vic is guilty other than hearsay. And of course, that will be proven in the court of law once, of course, we do see Vic take these individuals that are accusing him of said things to court, and if they end up finding him guilty and or innocent of said actions. But even then, my question is, if they find Vic innocent, then what? What happens with the actors? Because a lot of these actors, seemingly enough, didn't have a problem working with him before, so why now? Of course, these are two actors among many others that have pulled away from Kamehacon, and that's very unfortunate if you were to ask me. However, I will close this video off from a live stream clip of Nick Requeta and Emish's live, as I do encourage you guys to go on ahead and check this out because it does go as far as to show the contractual side of how Kamehacon is running things and the pragmatic view of why this is beneficial in having VIC MIGNOGNA be a part of this convention. So again, guys, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you guys had a great time. I hope you guys share your thoughts and opinions with me in the comment section below. If you guys are not following me on Twitter, follow me at Twitter at UnrealNetwork. Subscribe to my primary channel at UnrealNetwork for more alternative Dragon Ball content, gaming content, live streams, and many other things to come. Again, also subscribe to this channel, guys. Turn on all notifications. Thank you all so much for your support. Thank you all so much for watching, and without wasting any more time, let's jump straight into the clip. Here we go.
Kamehacon basically said, they put out a statement earlier today saying, "We will be making multiple announcements today. So first and foremost, we are running a fan convention built by fans. Under no circumstance has any guest influenced our contracts or negotiations. These contracts," well, on Facebook it says that these contracts are ours to uphold and our responsibility alone. So, now in my opinion, you know, the biggest thing that stands out here for me is negotiations, right? That's the biggest word. I think that's an important word there. And right. Mainly because, well, because they reference a couple of things. Under no circumstance has any guest influenced our contracts or negotiations. Well, what negotiations would you be referring to? Primarily, I mean, once the contract is signed, the contract is signed. The person's supposed to come to this venue at this time, at this day, and perform as expected. And the con will guarantee, in most cases, the con will guarantee a certain amount of money that they're supposed to make or that they will make. And in addition to anything else that they make off of profits and things like that. So negotiations, arguably, if you consider the sequence of events that took place recently, that would be an important word there for me. For me primarily. I don't know about you, but in pertaining to the con itself, it seems like Kamehacon at this stage, after getting backlash for bringing Vic back, albeit mainly based on concerns about safety issues, Which is interesting. Which is interesting. You have to consider, well, why are they making a statement like this after just announcing VIC, after receiving the backlash that they got, and after seeing how much overwhelming support that they've gotten and received for announcing VIC Mignogna? Well, you'd have to consider what would be the MO here. Now, me, if I were a business owner or someone who ran conventions on the side, doesn't matter what it is. I don't care what anybody thinks at this point in time. Let's look past KickVic. Let's look past allegations. Let's look past everything. If you're a con owner and you run conventions for X amount of time on the side, what would be your primary goal, right? You would have to assume with a potential Dragon Ball Super series on the horizon, with an announcement on the horizon, we are expecting that, for those of you guys who are aware about that. Still, Dragon Ball Super Broly is hot. Many things to come, Dragon Ball content in general, anything, anime. Considering Monica and company are still, I guess relevant, you could say relevant, beings or individuals in the industry, you have to consider, well, I think for me, I would want to keep the door open to the idea of me, being able to work with them in the future. There are a lot of people out there that don't really know what's going on with VIC Mignogna. You can point to the casuals, for example, right? A lot of people don't watch YouTube. A lot of people aren't on Twitter. They don't care. They see this as nothing more than Twitter beef, Twitter fingers, and people fighting each other on the internet. That's why they stay away from it. Toxicity, right? That's what they see it as. So you have to consider what would be Kamehacon's MO here. And obviously this is just speculation based on what I've been presented, based on public data, public information. I assume that the owner himself and staff, and to my understanding, would want to continue pursuing Monica Rial, Sabat, and company in the future. And to do that, you'd have to try to put out a statement or to at least alleviate any damage to her reputation amidst all of this. Because Kamehacon became a party, right? They ended up getting caught in the crossfire. And now, since they've given us what we wanted, VIC Mignogna, which is a major W, we can't really criticize them anymore. They've earned our respect with a K, right? They've earned our respect. So where do we go from here? Well, Kamehacon has to say, well, we can't just assume Monica is just going to be a piece of garbage going forward. That wouldn't be smart to do if you were a business person, right? Ethics and morality aside, obviously, Monica doesn't really fit the bill in my opinion. I don't think she fits the bill in my opinion, but con owners do. They understand that, okay, these are voices. We're going to need them in the future. How do we do that? Well, okay, let's work something out. I'll put out this statement. We'll put out this statement. It's not really going to contradict anything, right? It's going to shake everybody up a little bit, but we're going to word it. We're going to format it in a way where it's going to get people to think certain things, but to people who have understanding of this, which is why we're here to talk about it, they'd be able to read between the lines. And by no means is this, me trying to expose Kamehacon by saying, go get them, guys. They're trying to bring Monica back. And I encourage you guys not to do that, because that's not what we're here to do. Ultimately, we want these conventions to make money. Without them, VIC Mignogna there would be no worth for him to attend it, right? So ultimately, the goal is to make money. The goal is for the fans to come together and to be happy. And to do that, you'd have to help alleviate as much damage to X party or to said person's reputation, and to at least keep the idea of you pursuing potential contracts with them in the future. So that's the goal, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much nailed it. I mean, this is a public statement. It doesn't, like you said, it doesn't change anything that's happened. It doesn't change. Actually, it doesn't change the.
It doesn't change anything from Monica.
It doesn't change anything from the legal perspective at all.
Exactly.
This is something. One second.
Yum.
All right, got to keep up appearances. Keep up appearances. Wouldn't want people to call me the sober lawyer. That'd be embarrassing. I don't think people realize that would be a far worse fate in the world than being called.
Well, you're gonna have to put your red face on eventually.
Yeah, that'll happen in probably 20 minutes.
Start blushing. But yeah, the floor's yours.
Okay, so here's the thing with that statement. We went through this. The people who followed me from Comicsgate know about this because Meyer versus Wade had a very, very similar thing. Mark Wade interfered with allegedly, pretty freaking allegedly, interfered with the contract of Richard Meyer by calling up Antarctic Press and exerting some amount of pressure on them, and then a day later, they dropped the contract. So that happened. All right. Now, what happened after that is Antarctic Press put out a statement basically that there was some terrifying things in the world, and so they were stopping the contract. And then like a day or 2 days or 3 days later, they put out a new tweet, and that tweet said, "We just want to let people know that it wasn't like Mark Wade's fault or whatever. Please stop brigading us."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It wasn't that. But they're in Texas. Shockingly, so all of this is in Texas, which Texas is the greatest state on earth for so many reasons. And one of them is that tortious interference with the contract in Texas is so freaking beautifully in favor of the contract and not in favor of anybody else. Texas actually looks at a subsequent statement by the breaching party. In this case, there's not a breach, right? Kamehacon has VIC at the coming to the thing. And by the way, Kamehacon, thank you so much. Your fans have your back. Everybody's got your back. We're all in support of you in this decision.
Let me just jump in right there. In addition to add to that, the actual owner is actually very happy to have received the amount of support that he's gotten, like that the con has gotten. So what he told me was that what he said was, "I tip my hat off to your movement." Me and the staff were like, we were really relieved to see the amount of support that we got, because it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy for him to do that. So he wanted to tell me to tell you guys thank you. He really appreciates the support, and he's really looking forward to seeing a lot of you guys over there.
Yeah, so thank you guys, by the way. Thank you for being respectful and supportive of the convention, because I'm telling y'all, without that level of support, without that level of reinforcement, we might not have seen VIC come back to the convention. I mean, we know stuff was happening behind the scenes. I think Ty talked about it a little bit to the amount that he could. We know that they were under immense pressure from a bunch of different factors, but having a positive movement saying, "Hey, we're with you," was helpful. And then it's funny because if you contrast it with the other side, we're trying to get an extra person to the convention to bolster the convention's numbers. The other people are trying to take people away from the convention. And that dichotomy can't be more pronounced than it is. It just shows what the two movements are about. One is about supporting the fans, supporting the convention, and supporting the community. The other one is about screeching, shrieking, and crying until they get their way, which ultimately harms a good chunk of the fan base, harms voice actors, and harms conventions ultimately.